I ain't gonna hold you. I just got my motherfucking money in from that motherfucking UFC lawsuit, though. I got my money from that shit.
November 2025, Rampage Jackson goes live. And what he says next, it sends shockwaves through the entire MMA world. He's not announcing a comeback. He's not hyping a fight. He's celebrating a check, a big one, $375 million big. And Dana White? He's absolutely furious. See, this isn't just about money. It's about vindication. It's about over 1,000 fighters who spent years feeling like they were getting robbed. Years of blocked sponsorships, inflated numbers, and straight-up disrespect. And now, they're finally cashing in. But while these old-school warriors are celebrating justice, something darker is happening behind the scenes. Current fighters, the ones still in the cage right now, they're stuck in the same broken system. And some of them, they're so desperate, they're making deals that could destroy everything.
I ain't gonna hold you. I just got my motherfucking money in from that motherfucking UFC lawsuit, though. I got my money from that shit. Get a little extra bump before Christmas. You know what I'm saying? That money helped, though. You right, that money helped, though.
This is the story of the biggest settlement in combat sports history, and the corruption scandal that proves the problem was never really fixed.
My kids gonna have a good Christmas this year. Everybody except for Rod. I mean, let's go. Let's get out of here.
Let's rewind. December 2014. A group of fighters led by Kung Lee files a lawsuit that would shake the UFC to its core, the Lever Zuffa case. And what they're alleging? It's explosive. They claim the UFC didn't just dominate MMA, they monopolized it. Exclusive deals with venues, locked-in sponsors, broadcasters on lockdown, the whole 9 yards. The result? Fighters couldn't negotiate, couldn't move, couldn't get paid what they were worth. And while they were scraping by on $12,000 purses, the UFC was growing into a $4 billion empire by 2016. Here's how they did it. Multi-fight contracts that trapped fighters for years. No freedom, no leverage. Just sign on the dotted line or don't fight at all. But it gets worse. Attorneys started digging, and what they found was damning. Internal emails, anti-competitive strategies, the whole playbook laid out in black and white. Economists testified that if fighters had been in an open market, a fair market, their pay could have been 20 to 30% higher, minimum. The UFC's defense? We create value. We give them exposure. We handle medical care. But the numbers didn't lie. The jury sides with the fighters. Damages awarded. Victory, right? Not so fast. Judge Richard Boulware slashes the award. Appeals fly. Chaos erupts. 2024 rolls around. A $335 million settlement gets proposed. The judge rejects it. Not enough. Finally, September 2024. $375 million approved. So who got paid? Anyone who fought between December 16th, 2010 and June 30th, 2017. Nearly 1,900 fighters filed claims. That's a 97% participation rate. Payouts were calculated based on how many fights you had, how much you earned, and how much promotional value you brought to the table. The average? $230,000. The highest? Anderson Silva, $10.3 million. Even fighters who were never champions, never headlined a pay-per-view, they're getting life-changing money. October 2025, final approval comes through. November, the checks start rolling out, and that's when Rampage hits that live stream. But here's the thing. For Rampage, this moment is bittersweet. His son, Rampage Jackson, is facing felony charges. The family's going through hell. And this money? It's not just vindication. It's security. It's survival. You can hear it in his voice. The emotion is raw, real. He's not bragging. He's relieved. And the fans feel it too. The moment goes viral instantly. But while fighters are celebrating, the UFC is making moves. Big moves. They announce a massive media rights deal with Paramount Global. $7.7 billion. $1 billion for a year. Double what ESPN was paying. And here's the kicker. They're moving away from pay-per-view. Everything's going to Paramount Plus. Subscription model. For fans, that's great. Lower costs, more access, no more $80 pay-per-views. But for fighters, that's where things get complicated. MMA journalist Ariel Helwani breaks it all down.
Yesterday, we kind of just presented you the news and sort of talked about it, digested it, inspected it, dissected it, all that stuff and more. Today, I want to talk more about it as I've had time to allow myself to think, ponder, marinate this massive news. And one of the conclusions that I came to, which, you know, it doesn't take a rocket science to break this down this way, but this is how I'm breaking it down. 4 entities are at play here. 4 entities were involved and affected by yesterday's news.
He says there are 4 winners here. Paramount, the UFC, the fans, and supposedly the fighters. But then he pauses, and he asks the question everyone's thinking. Do the fighters actually win?
The last entity, of course, are the fighters. And to me, they're the big losers here. They're the big losers, not because, you know, the viewership gets affected. That remains to be seen. If you're behind less of a paywall, you're seen by more people, that's probably a win. But number one, they're sitting here watching all the executives wave their pom-poms and say how great this is. They're sitting here hearing Dana White say this is good for the fighter.
Dana White is out here making promises. Bonuses are going up, pay will rise. Performance of the night awards will be bigger. Sounds good, right?
And so my thought process goes to, well, how? How is it good for the fighters? Is the base pay going up? Is the introductory pay going up? 10 and 10, is it now going to be 20 and 20? Are we getting rid of the show win model as a result? Are the performance bonuses now going to be 50K to 100K? Is it going to be now like 100K a pop as opposed to 50K a pop? What becomes of the champions with pay-per-view points? You saw Tom Aspinall on the program yesterday saying, well, what becomes of my pay-per-view points? No one has told me. The vast majority, if not all of the fighters, didn't know about this. They didn't consult them. They don't have to. There's no CBS.
Let's do the math. Analyst John S. Nash crunches the numbers. The fighter pay pool might go up by $74 million a year. That's a 33% increase. But here's the problem. Their share of the revenue, it drops to about 15%. Compare that to other major sports leagues. NBA, 50%. NFL, 48.8%. MLB, 49%. Boxing, 50 to 60%.
And so when you consider that, and you also consider the fact that they're making 0% of this $7.7 billion, at least as of now. I hope to be proven wrong. 0% of that ad revenue as well, when NBA players, for example, make 50% of the TV revenue and the overall revenue, I should say. And as a result of the TV revenue, the salary cap goes up and all these things are moving up, which benefits the players. If I'm a fighter sitting back and watching this, I'm like, well, how exactly does this benefit me? How is this actually better?
The UFC is making record money, and fighters are still getting scraps. Dana White loves to say, we make fighters money.
People like to push the buttons and talk about fighter pay, and you don't ever see us coming out and talking about it or doing whatever, because I don't give a shit. I got 20-something-year-old Jake Paul, a fucking YouTuber, talking about fighter pay, or these other guys on the internet. We know what the hell we're doing over here. And at the end of the day, my philosophy is always this. It's nobody's business what these fighters are making. None of these guys are under some type of gag order in their contract. Any fighter on the roster can come out and tell you guys what they make.
But the reality? Most fighters are making $10,000 to $12,000 to show. Another $10,000 to $12,000 if they win. And that hasn't changed in a decade. Oh, and by the way, they're independent contractors, so they pay for their own travel, their own training camps, their own taxes. 40% of UFC fighters have second jobs just to survive. Let that sink in. Rampage has an idea. He calls for $1 million fight of the night bonuses. He says it would boost excitement, reward risk-taking, make fighters actually want to put on a show. The UFC's making $1.1 billion a year, he says. They can afford $2 million per event. Dana's response? Bonuses might go up to $100,000. Might. And then there's another problem, one that Helwani brings up.
ESPN on Twitter, SportsCenter on Twitter, ESPN MMA on Twitter. Okay, these are the numbers: 58.8 million ESPN, 45 SportsCenter, ESPN MMA 1.6. Compare that to say CBS, Paramount Plus, CBS Sports. Twitter 1.1, 416, 1.4. Blow them out of the water. Look at Instagram, 28.2 to 965. 38.8 to 1.5, 4.6 to 1.5, blown out of the water. Facebook, 24 to 2.4, 17.4 to 3.8, 4.8 to 4.4, close on that one, but that's ESPN MMA to CBS Sports.
Exposure. ESPN has 300 million followers across social media. Paramount, 32.6 million. Fighters are losing promotional reach, and that means fewer sponsorship deals, smaller personal brands, less money outside the cage. So while the UFC celebrates billions, the fighters are left wondering how they're supposed to build a future. And this is where it all comes crashing down. November 2nd, 2025, UFC Fight Night 263. A fighter named Isaac Dolgarian steps into the cage against Yadier Del Valle, but something's off. The betting odds shift dramatically right before the fight. IC360, a betting integrity firm, flags the anomalies. $16 million bet against Dolgarian.
Probably about 1 o'clock that day, we're with a company called IC360, and they are the best bet monitoring company in the business. And they reached out to us and they told us that there was some unusual action going on with that fight. Do we know anything? We didn't. So what we did was we called the fighter and his lawyer and said, what's going on? There's some weird action going on in your bet, weird betting action going on in your fight. Are you injured? Do you owe anybody money? Has anybody approached you to and the kid said, no, absolutely not. I'm going to kill this guy. And, so we said, okay. The fight plays out.
The fight happens. Dulgarian loses, and it looks suspicious. The Nevada State Athletic Commission freezes his $30,000 purse. The UFC terminates him immediately, and the FBI gets involved. Dana White personally calls Dulgarian. Are you injured? Do you owe money? Has anyone approached you? Think about those questions. Really think about them. Dana knows. He knows how vulnerable these fighters are.
And first round finish by rear naked choke. Literally, the first thing we did was call the FBI. So we called the FBI. I've met with the FBI twice today.
How desperate some of them might be. The FBI escalates the investigation. A meeting is held with director Kash Patel. This isn't going away. And then the stories start coming out.
So, if you try to do this, I've been very vocal and very open about this. We will be your worst enemy. We will immediately go after you, guns a-blazing, with the FBI and whoever else we need to get, and we will do everything we can to make sure you go to prison.
Vince Morales admits he was offered $70,000 to throw a fight. Vanessa Demopoulos, same thing. Lando Vannata. Yep. These aren't isolated incidents. This is a pattern. Fighters are in debt. They're working second jobs. They're one injury away from financial collapse, and fixers know it. They're targeting the most vulnerable people in the sport. Dana White blames individuals.
It's like, you're seeing things out on the internet where like fighters are coming out and going, oh, I was approached. Really? Why didn't you tell us that? Or more importantly, why didn't you tell law enforcement that you were approached? Now you're saying that you were approached? It's like if somebody comes up and says, hey, I want you to rob a bank. I'm going to rob banks. Want to rob a bank with me? And you don't do it. What, you're not gonna tell law enforcement? It's really weird that fighters are coming out now saying they were approached.
But Joe Rogan, he sees the bigger picture. He links the scandal directly to pay disparity. He mentions Francis Ngannou walking away from the UFC because even as heavyweight champion, he felt undervalued. If champions can't make it work, what chance do undercard fighters have? Social media explodes. If pay wasn't garbage, this wouldn't happen. You can't pay fighters poverty wages and act shocked when they take shady deals. Luke Thomas puts it bluntly. Fixers target UFC fighters because 80% of the revenue goes to corporations, not athletes. The UFC responds by adding betting integrity policies. But here's the thing, those are reactionary measures. Band-aids on a bullet wound. The FBI investigation is still active. Some fighters are cooperating. And it echoes another scandal from 2022, the Kraus-Minner betting case. Here's what's terrifying. Dulgarian's gym has ties to that previous case, which means this might not be random. This might be an organized network, so let's bring it all together. Rampage Jackson is celebrating justice for fighters from 2010 to 2017. The UFC is celebrating a $7.7 billion media deal. And current fighters, they're facing corruption pressures because they're broke. The settlement fixed the past. But the present? It's still broken. There's another lawsuit coming. The Johnson class. Fighters from 2017 onward. They're fighting for the same thing Rampage just got paid for. Because the system didn't change. The UFC just wrote a check and moved on. And until fighter pay becomes fair, until these athletes get treated like professionals in a billion-dollar industry, this cycle will keep repeating. Old fighters got their justice. Current fighters are still waiting. And the question everyone's asking? How many more scandals will it take before the UFC actually fixes the problem?